Good morning. Welcome to Just for Today, a time of eclectic readings, sharing of perspectives, meditation, and prayer. I'm Reverend Rafe Ellis, Senior Minister and Spiritual Leader at the newly joined Center for Spiritual Living of Columbia and Greater Baltimore. Today is May 29th. And what caught my attention this morning was The Prophet by Khalil Gibran. And I opened it up randomly and it landed on page 35. And so I will simply read the opening stanza. And the weaver said, "Speak to us of clothes." And he answered, "Your clothes conceal much of your beauty, yet they hide not the unbeautiful. And though you seek in garments the freedom of privacy, you may find in them a harness and a chain. Would that you could meet the sun and wind with more of your skin and less of your raiment. For the breath of life is in the sunlight, and the hand of life is in the wind." I'm going to read that one more time here. And the weaver said, "Speak to us of clothes." And he said, "Your clothes conceal your beauty, yet they hide not the unbeautiful. And though you seek in garments the freedom of privacy, you may find in them a harness and a chain. Would that you could meet the sun and wind with more of your skin and less of your raiment. For the breath of life is in the sunlight, and the hand of life is in the wind." Lots of things come up for me reading that. Your clothes conceal much of your beauty, and yet they hide not the unbeautiful. it For me, that goes to that mentality of body shaming, that mentality that somehow our physical is unbeautiful, and the very act of covering what we think is unbeautiful actually exposes it. And then this part where, "And though you seek in garments the freedom of privacy, you may find in them a harness and a chain." I think to some degree we are all chained to this idea of fashion, even if our idea is in resistance to fashion, right? And so, this whole idea of clothes and the power that we give clothing, becomes a restriction, something that, and I don't think it's limited to clothes. I think clothes is just the one area that Khalil Gibran is addressing in this particular response. But I think he addresses it consistently throughout his work, The Prophet, that in essence, the things that we give our power to can either liberate us or imprison us, depending on the motivation for giving it our power. If I give clothing my power as an avenue of getting your approval, it quickly becomes a prison. It becomes a financial prison. It becomes a physical prison. It becomes a mental prison. It becomes an emotional prison. It becomes a prison where I negate my own self-value and my self-worth, because in a world of fashion that's always changing and prices are always escalating, I position myself to never be able to measure up. And that is quite the prison. Quite a prison. Um, versus when I think of clothing as a utility, as a necessity, then it becomes less of a prison and more of a means of expression based on what I choose to wear. And then, if I'm being really honest, there was that process of, am I wearing this because it really represents me, or am I wearing it in defiance of somebody or something? Um, because even that act of defiance is motivated by the thing that I'm defying and still may not actively represent the authentic me. Um, and I love that he references exposing ourselves to more light and more wind, because our physical body needs the sunlight, not just to be in it all completely clothed, but we need to be in it in a way that our bodies can absorb it, simply so we can process vitamin D, if nothing else. And I'm sure there are other physical benefits. And we now know there are some physical risks as well. Um, so it's always about balance. It's always about revealing more and maybe meeting the information that is revealed with an openness and a curiosity rather than a resistance or a condemnation or a defiance, even in our clothing. I love this spiritual journey because everything is spiritual. Everything. The thing that I think is the most mundane can bring me the most awe and wonder, can be the most magnificent if I will just allow my perspective to shift. So that's what a brief reading about clothing brings up for me. And I recognize that we're on like a 30-second delay, so excuse me, I'll pause and see if any of you want to share your thoughts. And if not, then we'll go into our meditation. And while I'm waiting for responses, we'll just remind us that this period of meditation is simply a 5-minute practice session. It's an opportunity for people who may not be used to meditating to get their feet wet, so to speak. And I invite you to just practice being present with what is, being in acceptance of what is. If your nose itches, it's part of your meditation. If an ambulance goes by, it's part of your meditation. If the neighbors are noisy, part of your meditation. Dog barks, part of your meditation. Rather than trying to push anything away, rather than being irritated by something, the invitation is to just practice being present with what is in a peaceful, calm, centered manner. And so, seeing no comments, I'm going to read our offering through one more time and take us into our 5-minute meditation practice. So again, from The Prophet by Khalil Gibran, page 35. And the weaver said, "Speak to us of clothes." And he answered, "Your clothes conceal much of your beauty, yet they hide not the unbeautiful. And though you seek in garments the freedom of privacy, you may find in them a harness and a chain. Would that you could meet the sun and wind with more of your skin and less of your raiment. For the breath of life is in the sunlight, and the hand of light is in the wind." one. One love, one life, one peace, one power. All of this contained within the one substance. Describing as best language can the infinite goodness, the infinite nature of this one. One that is everywhere present, having no circumference, its very center must be everywhere present. Being the singular self-existent substance, it simply has always been, so it has no beginning, can have no end. It simply is. And it is that substance that is the source of all life expressing. This one substance, whole, complete, and perfect within itself, expresses itself in multiplicity, individualized emanations of itself in form. And so I know that I am that. I am this infinite substance made manifest in form by the substance itself to express itself as this thing I call my life, that is really its life. Fully empowered to use this substance, I am the activity of expansion. And so I claim and affirm that I am infinite intelligence in form. Everything that needs to be known, everything that can be known, is already known within me. And so I choose to be aware of that now. I choose to be aware of the desire of the infinite as me to express itself as newness. And so I choose to be aware of every limiting thought so that I can heal, so that I can neutralize those thoughts, so that I can reveal more of this infinite oneness as me in the daily activity and choices of this human life. I welcome anything unlike perfect alignment to be revealed so that I can shift into greater alignment, into a greater experience of the truth of my being, into a greater expression of life, of love, of peace, of power, a greater experience of being what I am, being the authentic, being aware of the desires within me to express life, to experience life, to be life. I claim it all. And I celebrate. I celebrate that just as quickly as it is spoken into word, as quickly as it's thought, believed, the activity of law, the doer in creation, instantly manifested. And so I know that there's nothing to wait for and everything to open to. That everything consciousness as me desires is already present. That everything life as me desires to experience is right there, ready now, waiting for me. to notice it, to claim it, to experience it. And so I release every thought, every conditioned belief. I release every conscious and unconscious barrier to a complete experience of the totality of life, to the magnificence of beingness. I release everything that hinders that. And I let go into the mystery that is only for my good, only for the good of all. And I allow that to unfold as my experience, trusting, absolute trust that only good unfolds as me, in me, through me, to me, however I phrase it. That is the activity of letting go. So having released, having claimed and released and celebrated, I simply step into receiving. Ashe. Shalom. Aho. Amin. Amen. And so it is. Namaste.